Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of the Dorking RFC podcast. I'm your host, Lee Nightingale, and as always, I'm joined by our spurious leader, Armand Roux, and I'm totally delighted that we've got just such a wonderful guy in our chairman, Shaun Hammond, with us. Guys, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Lee.
Wonderful. We've got some great stuff to talk about today. Really looking forward to getting into that with you guys. One thing that's really kind of, I guess we should impress is that this is not just a COVID update podcast, right? Although it feels like it's becoming that because it's such a pain in the rear. But let's just get that out of the way, Armand. Obviously, we've got plans to come back in a fashion. We were at stage E, I believe. And then, of course, that's all been wiped out. Just give us a sense of what that means for the club from a playing and training perspective. What's that done to us?
Yeah, no, of course, it's quite challenging for us to try and get back to the stage where we want to play, and it feels like we're revisiting these plans every month or so, and then it gets kicked into touch, and we've got to replan them again. But at the moment, the RFU has announced that we've moved him back to stage A, which we were at lockdown 1, shall we say, where no sporting activity is allowed. And now, even though it's not a nice message to deliver to all the coaches to say that cancel and bin off all training sessions. At the end of the day, it's for the greater good, and we need to look at the safety of our members. So that's where we're at, unfortunately.
Okay, and I'll come to you in a second, Shaun. But just throwing this in there and using technology like this, I've seen on our YouTube channel that there are some training videos there. Perhaps let's really enhance that some more, where the coaches can host sessions like this. I'm happy to use this technology to allow them to do that, or posting stuff on YouTube, whatever it may be. But let's try and keep the thinking going, the thought process, because we've got probably, in all seriousness, 3 months of this lockdown. They're talking mid-February. Reality, add the 2 to 3 weeks on and some delay, it's probably going to be end of March, early April. Sorry to sound such a pessimist, but I think that's being optimistic. So anything and everything we can do to keep the guys encouraged, keep them focused in terms of health, fitness, training, then I'm all for it, and I'm open to helping where I can with that.
Yeah, I think I guess we're looking at that's probably the government's view on it and how they would take it, but the RFU is working quite closely with the DCMS to try and get advice out to all the clubs. I would say, though, I would think that there will be some form of training activity in February for all at some stage, if schools are going to be returning and the kids are going to be allowed to do PE classes at schools. Then therefore I would see that come across into the rugby arena. It might not be matches, it might be restricted to stage B or C like we've seen before, but unfortunately that's where we're at. But coming back to your video comment, actually with lockdown 1 we did do some videos for lockdown 2 we did do videos for the YDP group by our coaches, and we shared that quite globally. And now going forward, we're looking to do video sessions on almost having a Sunday morning club, get the kids dressed in their Dorking RFC kits and getting the S&C coaches and a couple of senior players doing some bits. So yeah, we got to use the technology at our disposal, and I think first and foremost try and keep those members, keep them sort of engaged still, because they're sitting at home on laptops, on Zoom calls, talking about all sorts of things every day. Let's give them some activity to do.
Yeah. Shaun, what's your view on this? How are you feeling about all this?
We have to deal with the facts as they are, and I'd give credit to Armand and Ryan and Pip, Dom and Nick Smith, and lots of others. But over the last 9 months, they have produced the best possible offering, considering the facts that we deal with, and they put a lot of work in. And it's great credit to them that we've had that safe environment, and we can only ask for support of the members and the sponsors to keep us in a healthy position. And thankfully that's been forthcoming. Our membership stats compared to a full year of uninterrupted rugby is running at close to 90% of the previous year, which I think is a message of loyalty from people, and also support, which is very important. And even more surprising, or perhaps pleasing, is the support we've had from our sponsors, from our centenary sponsor Downs to Crimson to Jackson Stops and all the others. We really have, it's made the difference to us to be able to survive in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely, and I completely second that. Sponsors have really sort of stepped up, and so has the community and the members, and raising funds for the building works and everything. Because I think everyone's pretty switched on to the fact that just because we're not there, it doesn't mean we don't have costs and ongoing costs, right? So we had Benji on the previous episode, explaining all about the YDP, the great work he's been doing there. There's been so much gone on over the last 9 months where people have really sort of taken the reins, really stayed positive, tried to do everything they can to get some form of training out there. So yeah, huge kudos to them. Speaking of the health of the club, Shaun, and putting your chairman hat on for us, can you give us a sense of just where we're at? And we're not expecting you to go into the full finance details for sure, but give us a sense of perhaps the last 12, 24 months, where we've come from, how we've been impacted, what you've been doing with the board to keep us afloat, keep us stable, keep the lights on, if you will, and talk a little bit about the vision for the future. Let's get back to the positive.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're lucky in that we have stability in the board and the volunteers we have, and some of the most important roles, like treasurer with Paul Instone, he's the former finance controller of Gatwick Airport. He's been in that role for 8 years. We have a fantastic secretary in Kevin Bill, who's been there for the same period of time. And then we have, a great commercial talent in Andy Webb and Stuart Mitchell, former CEO of Maurizio F1, former MD of Sainsbury's. So we have some high quality people, and backed up by the senior partner at Downs Solicitors as our legal representative in Chris Miller. So it's a steady board, and there's always a balance to be struck between commercial business rigor and the passion for the game that we all have as volunteers, and it's getting that balance to make sure that our passion for the game doesn't overrun the ability of us to do things. So
yeah. And just to sort of quantify that, to say just how much that means. So golf is my main sport, and when I try and think of the same scenario in golf clubs, this is where the golf clubs end up in such a mess, because they have a committee, generally speaking, made up of people that have got time, which is key, but they're more often than not retired people, and more often than not people that have never held a position of authority, of leadership. They've not run a business, they've not been a manager or anything like that. So it ends up becoming more of a power struggle, and I will make a difference and all that kind of thing. And they get changed every sort of 2 years, so there's no consistency. That you start to put wheels in motion for something. Of course, then the new captain comes in, he's got his projects he wants to do, and it just ends up like almost like nothing gets done. With what we've got going on here at Dorking, by the sounds of it, is that people are there for the long haul and are accountable to themselves first and foremost, because they're remaining on that board, and it just means, like you say, stability, that they can see projects through to the end, see the fruits of that labor, and then even advance on those projects, right? So that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, we all get groomed at a certain stage in our Dorking career to do things we don't want to do, and my dear old friend Mark King always said, "You're going on the board, you're going on the board," and I said, "Oh, no, of course I'm not." And I thought I'd got a perfect excuse to him when we were watching a game over at Camberley, and Stuart was currently CEO of Wilkinson's, and Kingo was trying to get me to commit to the board, and I said, "Okay, I'll go on the board if Stuart goes on the board," thinking he'd be far too busy and say no, and that would be my get out of jail free card. Unfortunately, he said yes, about 8 years ago, and we're both still on there now.
Be careful what you wish for then, right?
and Ryan Gear will understand that this process continues, as I similarly got him onto the board as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the committee of golf clubs before, and it's nothing like what you guys have got going on there. It's generally a thankless task, historically, certainly within golf clubs. But it sounds like you guys get a lot of praise and credit and thanks from everyone at Dorking, and rightly so.
Yeah, I think it's important
you don't
not
get
to
paid.
have people that need praise, because and we've got in my mind the strongest board we've had in my time at the club, and the people do it because they genuinely love it, and they just do it, and we are really blessed in having so many talented people, and the problem is with just talking about a few is you miss the important ones out, and
well, I hope
everybody makes a superb addition to the board at the moment.
Wonderful, and I hope between Armand and myself over the course of these podcasts we'll cover and send out thanks and praise to everyone right across the club for everything they do. So please don't feel bad if you haven't been mentioned in any of the episodes yet. We'll get there for sure. How did you actually get involved first with the club, Shaun? What brought you to Dorking?
Well, I mean, I've been a player, since I was 10. Not in this area, and I'd played, I'd coached, I'd been a treasurer at another club, and then moved to this area. And one of my friends, current father of Fraser McDonald, one of our first team players. Fraser was about 8 at the time at Dorking, and then my son was coming up to 5, and where do we go and play rugby? And so Jeff said, you've got to come to Dorking. And so I turned up with Stuart's son Rory, and they both all turned up at 5 years of age, and I thought, perfect, I've been involved for 25 years of rugby, and now I can just sit on the touchline and watch, and get my bacon sandwich on a Sunday morning. And it lasted while we went through touch and a few memorable tours with Sir James Waits, which we'll say the less said about that the better. And then we got into contact, and as soon as I saw the contact happening, and we're nowhere near as organised as we are now with all the help, I thought, oh, maybe I should just give a little hand. And then, unfortunately, then from under 8s through to Colts, I became the coach of of that side. And I was only thinking before doing this podcast this morning, what an absolute difference the organisation of the club now at that level is, and the support to the quasi-amateur efforts of ourselves. We managed to produce some good players like Jasper King and Rory Mitchell and Dara, but I think with the coaching that you've got now, someone with a similar ability will achieve even more, which is very pleasing to know.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to getting Cam on the podcast as well. Before I come back to you, Shaun, just a couple of more things on the board. I want to ask Armand, how did you get involved? Because you got me involved, and I've shared how I got involved. But how did you become involved in Dorking? I'm sure there's many people here that perhaps don't understand that.
I'll give you the short version. Yeah, just was in South Africa between seasons, and a friend of mine I played rugby with back in South Africa at the time, or before he moved to England, was Jason Geldenhuys, who was our ex strength and conditioning coach of the club, and he came on a holiday to South Africa, and he came to visit me, and he said to me, you should think about coming to England. And I said, well, I'll think about it. And he said to me, well, Jim Evans is in Cape Town, which was chairman of the club at the time. And I ended up going for lunch with Jim, watching one of his sons play, and long story short, 6 weeks later I was in the UK. It's just sort of at that point they were trying to approach the community sort of initiatives we have at the moment by going into schools and doing coaching. So I put my hands up, I'll play a bit of rugby, do some community coaching at the time, and subsequently met my wife Lucy in the gym, and we got married, and now this is the home. But I guess I wouldn't have decided to make this my home if I didn't enjoy it in that respect, because I think the club's values and ethos at that point in time, as Shaun mentioned, but even back then at the level it was at, and if you compare it to now, it was a bit different, but the values was exactly the same as a proper rugby club. People look after each other, they support each other, and they really have a we take the rugby seriously, but also we take the off-field stuff quite seriously as well. And I think that's the quite a good balance the club has striked, and that's really appealed to me. And that sort of led me on to be there now. I think about 16 years almost now since I first came over. So.
And lo and behold, from Cape Town to King of Dorking.
Oh, thank you.
Had to get that one in. Had to get that in there, but that's fantastic, Armand, and it's testament to just how the club have made pretty much everybody feel, without exception, I think, into feeling hugely welcome, part of something, like it is a big family. It takes its responsibility in the community very, very seriously, takes its rugby very seriously, takes running the club very seriously, yet underlying all of it is respect and fun. I mean, I've seen that in all my visits to the club, albeit, I've only been really involved for 2 or 3 years now. Every time I come, the atmosphere has just been fantastic, both on the touchline and inside the clubhouse, before games, after games. It's a really, really nice environment to be in, one that I hope to be involved with for a long time. My daughter's only 17 months, a little ways off getting her involved with the youth program, but if there's anywhere I would like her to be involved in rugby, even though I have Tring on my doorstep, literally a mile and a half up the road, I would much prefer to bring her down to Dorking, to you guys.
Well, what you realise is when you're involved with the club, it's a life sentence, so you can't escape. And it's mirrored by Armand's story. Jim Evans recruited him now. Jim's done most jobs on the committee. He's now sort of chairman of the trustees, putting things in there. And it goes right through to people like Ted Ivans and the honorary life members who've been involved with the club for 60 years plus, and they still support the club. I get letters from quite a few of them, and they still support the club, not just with their heart, but with their wallets as well. And they're an incredible group of individuals who support the club. And I'm not going to name any of them, but I do thank them for their continued support. It's one of the things that makes the club a little bit different, is that we have this very broad demographic of support, and anybody who goes to a lunch will see some dodgy-old guys and girls up there, and see some youngsters, and they've all got the shared passion and support for the club. And that's a really endearing aspect of the club, that you may be 90, but you haven't lost your drive and enthusiasm for rugby and Dorking.
And digging into that a bit more, what I'm reading in the underlying tone of that is diversity. There's diversity right throughout the club, both on and off the pitch. You've obviously got kids, boys, girls. Yes, there's a huge, great big mix there. And of course, I'm sure one day we would love to have, full-on ladies rugby team, mixed touch games, non-touch games, whatever. It all is open out there for it, and I think there's definitely more and more need for it. Coming back to the board though, what does diversity mean to you, and what are you doing from a board perspective to ensure that that runs through the board?
Well, the simple answer in league with nearly everybody else is not enough, because you can never do enough in diversity. But you have to balance it with talent and capability as well. We're very keen. We're very lucky to have 2 ladies on the board. We're very, very talented, and it's an open door. We would like more, but I think we do a better job in the community, and it's quite difficult for a rugby club, because what we don't see is ourselves. And someone that comes from outside that rugby environment and sees all these confident, well-organised people, generally quite successful, it actually is an intimidating environment. And we have to remind ourselves that is, for someone who hasn't been brought up in that environment, that is intimidating itself, and we have to break that down and be very welcoming. Now, I think we do a good job of it. I was certainly welcomed very well into the club, but came from a rugby environment. We all, as leaders of the club, need to understand when you see a new face, that could be their first time, and whether they stay or whether they go somewhere else or whether they don't take rugby at all, it's all about that first impression. And so we're all keen to make it very welcoming and very open. And we've got more initiatives when we get back to the game to build on that and make it ingrained that, you know, we will be even more friendly than we already are. We'll be more open and we'll be more diverse. And we're lucky that we have supporters like the Waits charity, which enables us to go out into the community and break down some of those barriers which would inhibit someone to take up rugby. And we do that in many different ways. It's not just the coaching, you know. It's okay saying, yeah, we're giving you a coach and come and join, but the cost of, you know, of a full set of kit and boots and everything, and membership is an intimidation itself. So we utilise those fears to take those funds to take away economic exclusion. So you know, we want that there, and we'll always do that. You know, the membership will never be an inhibitor to someone playing rugby.
That's fantastic. So are we talking? I guess we're not talking necessarily scholarships, but sort of or sponsorships in a way. But it's about leveraging club funds or assets or kit or equipment to remove the barriers of people where finances may be preventing them.
And doing it in a manner that doesn't identify you as, you know, in that manner. The confidentiality and the subtlety that is involved is important to keep no one wants to be seen to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the similar sort of vein, last summer I've got North Church Cricket Club across the road from me here, and they were running 2 kids programs throughout the year, and I managed to cotton on to the second one. I was a bit late on the first one, but they were training kids from, I think it was like 7 to 12 or something like that throughout the summer for an 8-week program. And I mean, there's like 70 or 80 kids that are being trained, given the space of, you know, it's just a cricket field. That's all. And they've done extremely well. And I did a sort of similar thing where I got in contact with the club and said, look, you know, do you know of kids that you know would be involved if finance wasn't a barrier? Because even though it was only 50 quid, I'd like to sponsor, you know, up to 5 or 10 kids to get them involved, because they could be a future first team captain, and we just don't know it because there's just that barrier. So we went through the right channels and managed to speak with the parents in a very respectful, sensitive way, and said, look, you know, it's something I would really love to do if you're comfortable with it. And you know, they were hugely appreciative. So you know, just anything little that people can do to help bring new blood, get the kids involved, because it's more than just, you know, are they the next star? No, I mean, we're talking about values that and fitness and mental health and all the wonderful things that come from being involved in not just rugby but sport in general, right?
Yeah,
no, definitely. And I think one of the things I just want to add to what Shaun said about obviously us trying to remove some of these barriers. A big barrier is for someone to play rugby in the first place. If we step back from it, you know, if you look at how many people play rugby compared to football, there's no pain or risk for not as many when you do play other sports, and people find it quite hard to get into it, you know. So if there are genuinely people who want to play rugby and there's a different barrier there in place, and I think it's fantastic that the club is going out of their way, and there is support of the third parties to support us to enable us to remove those barriers for those people to play rugby. And yeah, just it's also quite a great feeling to support someone, you know, if they really want to do it, and just to take those barriers away. So yeah, great initiative by the club, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw that on the face of the kids, you know, of having heard their journey, their story, you know, that what's going on with their life, and you think, wow, I mean, how do they leave the house in the morning and stuff, and then you know, you go across and you see them so happy, they're engaging with kids of their own age, they're playing cricket or rugby, and you can just see that for that hour or two, you've taken them away from
Yeah.
what's going on.
It's a good point, but I think there's a broader point. Involving them in the environment of rugby sort of achieves one of my aims or club's aims, is that it makes us inclusive, it makes us friendly. What we don't always realise, it has an impression amongst those young children to be aspirational, because they're in an environment which is aspirational.
Yeah.
And they may not encounter that in all the areas of their life, but they certainly are. And then with a group, they're with their team, and there's no status in a team, and they get that aspirational achievement bug. And Armand, I know you've seen it in some of the lads that we've had through the club who have had some tougher experiences than most of us, but they the rugby allows them to express themselves in a different way.
Yeah. And then definitely, I don't think we can emphasize it enough, because everyone's completely, the backgrounds are different and privileges are different, and that's the way it is. But rugby is a level playing field. The kids go out there, they love it, they enjoy it, and if you're going to give them that sort of neutral feedback as a coach who's not really involved in anything else rather than their training ability and application on the pitch, it's a different environment for them. They want to impress you, and they feel that they they want to sort of push themselves to the limit as well, to sort of show that I can do this. It's sort of a little tick box for them of achievement, and they'll take that away, and they'll feel really happy about what they've done, and that might influence other parts of their lives, whether at school or at home. So no, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, and it gives them something to look forward to, right? Because sometimes not everybody has something to look forward to on a weekly basis. And having that thing where they're like, right, yes, I've got to go to school, but in the back of their mind, they're like, I can't wait to get to the big field. I can't wait to get to go and play rugby, and seeing that excitement on the kids' faces on a Sunday morning when you got 600 of them like, oh, terracing around the field must be really heartwarming. Speaking of that kind of thing, I mean, and the club in general, an area that in any kind of club environment that you can't do without is the volunteers. Those people that give their time, their energy, their efforts for free to help support the club. Armand, I know this is an area really close to your heart, and you want to share a few things about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think we sometimes forget we've got this well-oiled machine at the club, but it's sort of 99% of it is volunteers that's turning up and trying to really make, to enjoy it for one, and for two, to try and make it a great environment for everyone else to experience. And if you look at all the youth coaches, you had 70 odd youth coaches throughout the club, and all of those being volunteers, sharing training plans, looking at best practice, upskilling themselves. It's phenomenal to have that. And on top of that, these age group are being asked to do car parking on a Sunday and man doors, so something as a club, I know for a fact that we're massively grateful for, because you bring a visiting club over, or a new parent come down for the first time, and they can see, oh, the under 9s are doing this today and under 10s are doing that, and they might get sight of the training plans. Wow, this is really well thought out and planned. And I think that's only down to the volunteers, and obviously there's volunteers running it, sort of managing it, shall we say, but also there's volunteers delivering it, and the feet on the ground. And I always think we can never have enough, and we can always got to appeal to more volunteers to step forward and help. And I guess this is a great platform to ask if there's anyone who wants to do it to let us know. But I think it's really grateful for the volunteers we do have and their professional approach.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'd echo that, Armand. The other thing I'd say is, generally when people volunteer, their engagement is over a long period of time, and they enjoy it. And it's we have a great community involvement, and it can only get better. And I think if there's any positives out of this coronavirus situation, is people are recognising the importance of community activities and have enjoyed it since we've done it. So yeah, please volunteer. We've got plenty of roles for people to do.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you've got some time to give, doesn't matter how much, I'm sure there's a role, a position, a place for you in the club. They'll welcome you in. Please do get in contact with either Armand or Shaun, and they can point you in the right direction. Shaun, I want to come back on a final point with yourself. Notwithstanding, let's say COVID disappears, and we hope with all the best will and intentions in the world that certainly by spring things will be different. Just putting that all to one side, what's your vision for the club? We talk about planning for the future, longevity, that kind of thing. What aspirations have you got for the club?
I mean, I think Armand knows it's a collective vision of the board and the trustees, and I think we'd like to be, if in some ways we achieved some of this already, but we'd like to be the premier amateur club in the southeast, ensuring that our proposition from under sixes to derelicts is the best possible proposition it can be. And if you set that as an aspiration, you never achieve it, but you make incremental improvements each year. And if I look back over the 6 years, I can see the proposition that we offer to the 14s to 18-year-olds is immensely better with the youth development program supported by the Don Douglas Fund, which enables us to send some people to South Africa, which is another opportunity to do things. The medical centre, the medical provision over the last 8 years has been enhanced dramatically, from just being a first team only situation to being all senior teams, to go through the junior side, and that makes it a safer environment and a more professional environment. The coaching quality, except in the King, of course, has increased dramatically in Dorking. But it makes the proposition from under six to derelict a better one all the time. The clubhouse development is part of that. It's a stepping stone. It's a big stepping stone for us. We've still got lots to do, but it will enhance the offering that we give to all the players, all the supporters going forward. So, without getting too businessy, it's a Kaizen process. We're continually improving it, hopefully. And that's our aspiration, to continually improve it.
Absolutely. I've always got that sense from Armand, and we heard it from Benji last week. We will not rest. I think is the underlying thing I'm getting there, that we will never sit back and say we've done it. We've achieved what we set out to. Even when we achieved set out, there's always something else, always some way to improve what we've done, because the game changes, regulations change, safety. There's so many different aspects to it. So yeah, like you say, you can set that aspiration, but the utopia is that you would never actually get there, and that's not a negative thing.
I think also to add to that, I think it's there's also the attitude of all the members, board members, I would say players, all the attitude everyone's got. No one's ever bigger than the club or walking around like, I would say, almost like the place owes them anything. Everyone is always there to try and improve, and that sort of leads on to quite a open relationship with each other, and sort of feeling free to comment on something, saying maybe we can improve on X, Y, and Z to move forward. And I think once your door's open and you allow people constructively to have a chat with you, it's always quite nice to sort of, as someone who's made that recommendation, to see it go into action and it actually works. So I think the club has got a really good fine balance at the moment to try and make that work, and fully support the club and Shaun's vision with where we want to be. That Premier Amateur Club status it's a big one for us, and I think we've done so well to get to where we are already, and club people are looking at us and hopefully saying that, great, look what a great job they're doing. But inevitably there will always be stuff that we need to focus on to improve on.
Yeah, one of the things that we should be pleased of, that some of our rivals have actually asked us to give advice about how we run the club, and in our league, more than one of the club has come to us and said, well, can you just tell us how you organise, how you do things, how you manage it? So that's credit to
hugely. I mean, that's wonderful to be recognised by your competition, if you like, but it's all healthy, right? And I think if you've got that, you're not seeing my homework mentality, if by sharing, because it's okay sharing training tactics, but that doesn't mean to say they're going to become as good as you, right? The players have got to actually act and take on board and remember and train, and it doesn't, just because you've shared an approach, it doesn't mean to say they're going to become as good as you. And I think it is testament to to the openness of the club, but sort of that friendly camaraderie between everybody.
Yeah, well, it obviously couldn't be great advice because one of the teams got relegated that year after taking our advice.
Oh well. Guys, thanks so much. It's been wonderful to have you on the show, Shaun. Thanks for coming on. We've greatly appreciated your time and sharing your vision and giving us an insight as to what goes on with the board. And hugely excited for the many years to come that we'll all be involved with the club, I'm sure.
Well, thanks for your time, Lee, and thanks, Simon, for taking time as well.
Right.
No worries. So that's it for this week. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Dorking podcast. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks.